Hey there fellow creators, Ben here from Cinder Studios, and this week I wanted to revisit an old topic that I have not discussed in a while, the 4 joints of drawing. Stick around. When it comes to the physical movement for the creation of art, typically we're looking at 4 joints: your fingers, your wrist, your elbow, and your shoulder. When you make a conscious effort to understand these 4 joints, you will have greater control and accuracy of your lines and brush marks. So to talk about each of these, let's go ahead and get a prop. I need a much bigger sheet of paper to demo this one. So to start things out, finger movements are typically done for short, small, simple lines, fine details, and things like letters and numbers, because traditionally in the Western world we learn to draw with our fingers and subsequently a little bit of your wrist. So just simple finger movements gives you those short lines, simple cross-hatching, letters, numbers, stuff like that. Finger movements alone, though, are limiting. You can only do so much in a tight space. If you're doing a super small piece, maybe about this big, getting all those little fine details, that's perfect. But as you scale up, you need to start utilizing more joints going up your arm. Implementing wrist movements allows you to get slightly bigger lines and sort of, more straight lines. You can do more distinct arcs by using your wrist, but again, it is a little bit more limited. You need to start utilizing your elbow and your shoulder a lot more. Now, upgrading to elbow movements really allows you to create bigger arcs and more expressive marks. So just pivoting our elbow, nice long arc. And depending on which side you're drawing on, your arms and, hands, arms, wrists, everything always arcs in on a circle. That's just how we're built. You want the other side. This is really hard for me to do with on my left side trying to sit down, but you get the arc going the other way just by switching hands. Implementing more elbow movements really allows you to free up that expression and get, again, much longer lines. But it's not until you start implementing your whole shoulder joint into your drawing that everything becomes possible. The shoulder, for many artists, is the core joint, the only one that really matters. A lot of times you'll see me between drawing and painting not even really moving my fingers or my wrist at all. Everything I'm doing is just shoulder movements, and I'm keeping my fingers and my wrists steady. For artists with certain physical disabilities, I actually saw this guy on Instagram the other day whose arms stopped at his elbow. He still sat there and was able to draw with the pencil lodged on his cheek and just moving his whole shoulder, because the shoulder is that core joint. Of course, typically if you're using your shoulder, you're more than likely going to be standing up, but you're able to get big, long, expressive marks, do anything you want, any movement, without losing that control for either detail or expression. But in most cases, you're not simply using just one joint. You could probably tell as I was here trying to do this, just trying to pivot one joint was actually really uncomfortable. It's only when you start combining all of these joints and moving your arm in a more natural way do you find the best freedom for expressing yourself in that way. Combining different movements as you draw gives you, again, that expression while still maintaining that level of control. And being conscious of it, even for practice, really kind of helps your brain free up it gets you out of a rigid mindset. I love doing this with big paper and a thick drawing utensil, something like this piece of compressed charcoal. It's a great way to practice, especially circles. I can't remember if I have a video on this or not, but simply, using your whole arm, your whole wrist, your whole, whatever, to get big, wide, expressive marks. And if you ever take a figure drawing class, you're standing up, you're using on a board like this, probably with charcoal or contact crayon, and they teach you to use your whole arm to get those marks. And of course, if you make that leap from drawing into painting, chances are you're going to need to utilize a much longer area, longer brush. Use the entire length of your arm, the entire length of your brush, stand back, and if you can use that, your shoulder joint, you can make whatever you want. But even with all that in mind, why should you really be practicing your 4 joints periodically? 1, it creates a greater understanding of your own limitations and weaknesses and how to work on them. 2, if you want to try some new methods and new techniques, it's a great way to discover different ways to express yourself. 3, if you utilize your upper 2 joints on a regular basis, you'd be surprised how much it amps up your skill and even boosts your line confidence. And finally, the more you practice consciously, the more your subconscious muscle memory starts to kick in the next time you're working on a masterpiece. So in place of wrapping things up this week in front of my wall, I wanted to do so in front of my new painting, Breath of Imperfection. I started this painting not on this easel, not on my table. I started this painting on the floor and using a giant wide brush. Why did I do that? Well, I needed the freedom to let that color flow before I started worrying about any kind of details. You know, standing up on the floor, looking down, just spreading this original yellow underneath with that, and then again with the orange before I did the resist technique, just letting my whole arm be that joint. And again, elbows, shoulder, really letting that become that level of expression. And even moving into the, darker layers here where I started thinking about shapes, started thinking about forms. This was actually charcoal, and I did the same thing, standing over top of the piece with using my whole arm. But even now that I'm working on filling out that color and glazing stuff in, I can hold that brush, stand at a distance, put myself way out here, and just think, be able to see the big picture, drop that in where I need to. A little bit of finger movements here to get that, thinner edge of the brush shapes, or just simply using my whole arm to drop in that color. It directly applies from the tiniest drawing all the way up to the largest painting. Anything you do to consciously think about your shoulder joints or your other joints, that's the stuff that subconsciously, the next time you're working on a piece, comes through in full force. So as always, if you learned something in this or liked hearing me talk about the art process, go ahead and hit the like button, get subscribed if you're not already, and this has been reminding you to keep on creating, stay inspired, and I'll see you guys next time.